So I was recently on vacation on a very, very long flight to New Zealand. By the way, gorgeous country. It was such an amazing vacation. However, on the ride there were a bunch of movies that you could watch. I, of course, watched Lord of the Rings because you kind of have to if you're going to New Zealand.
Potatoes. Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew.
But I also watched the new Bruce Springsteen movie, Springsteen Deliver Me from Nowhere. I'm a very big Bruce Springsteen fan. I love his music. It has shaped the way that I write songs myself. I just can't get over how incredible of a songwriter he truly is. I think Thunder Road might be one of the greatest songs ever written, straight up. And so when I found out that they were doing a movie about Bruce Springsteen, I'm like, oh my God, where do you even start? I was very happy to hear that they were specifically setting it during the Nebraska era. They weren't doing a Bohemian Rhapsody where you're speeding through like the first album and then you're going to get all the way to, maybe like a fall off or like, maybe you could end it with like Born in the USA. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad they just kept it to one era of his life. I was very intrigued by this. I thought the casting was great. The trailer looked amazing. And then it came out and I feel like it just sort of came and went. I feel like nobody really talked about it much, and I ended up missing it in theaters just because of life events. I wasn't able to go and see it for myself until I was on the plane. I was able to watch it. And I kind of understand why a lot of people feel kind of on this because this movie is like paradoxically boring. I'll try to explain what the plot is if you're not aware. This film is set right after Born to Run and right before Nebraska comes out. So, Nebraska is one of Springsteen's, I'd say it might actually be his most personal album, not one of, but the most personal album. It's basically just a collection of demos that he recorded in his own home with nothing but a 4-track tape recorder, a guitar, harmonica. I think one song has like glockenspiels on it, or maybe it's like a xylophone kind of thing. And then, of course, his own voice. Those were supposed to just be demos that he would then give to the E Street Band. Those E Street Band sessions didn't really work out, so they just released the demos acoustically as is. And it's a very interesting period in Springsteen's life, especially if you're going to make it into a movie. I just don't know what they were thinking here. This movie is literally about nothing. I don't mind if it's a slice of life or if it's a character study on who Bruce Springsteen is as a person or as an artist. And there are elements where it feels like they're trying to do a character study, especially with the relationship between him and his father. The only problem is the movie just doesn't do anything. It tells you how you're supposed to feel. You get moments where characters are like, oh, he's such a tortured soul, and it's like he needs to get these feelings out or else, and blah, 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 blah. Like it, you never see it. You hear about it. It breaks the rule of show, don't tell.
But it's these songs, Nebraska, Mansion, what they're doing with Atlantic City, it's not working, right?
And I'm not saying I hate the movie because, they didn't recreate Dancing in the Dark, like filming that music video. I'm not saying I wanted that. I like biopics that are like this. Love and Mercy is one of the best biopics I've ever seen in my life, and it follows two specific points in Brian Wilson's life, and it works so well. You don't have to like speed run through the entire history of the Beach Boys. And I'm glad they didn't do that here. I'm glad they didn't do the Wikipedia movie where you just skim through Springsteen's life. I just wish there was more to this movie. The pacing is really bizarre, and it kind of has that vibe of as soon as something interesting starts to happen, the scene just ends and we move on to the next thing. One of the big sort of emotional cruxes of this entire movie is Springsteen and his love interest, who is this single mom. And at first I'm like, oh, you can do some really interesting things with this. And then they don't do anything interesting with it. The same goes for him and his dad. A lot of the tension kind of just is unresolved by the end. And I get that might be the point. That might be the filmmakers saying that, just like in real life, you're going to have unresolved problems. You're going to have unresolved, emotional turmoil. But at the same time, you got to tell a story with stakes and maybe even a character arc. I get that maybe this is how real life was, and of course, Springsteen would go on to release Born in the USA, and it would be a major, major hit. And I really didn't like how it just sort of ended with them saying Nebraska was okay, it was like a sleeper hit, it would go on to be regarded as one of his best works later down the road. Born in the USA was a big hit, and then that was it. I really wish we got more of the E Street Band. I mean, imagine being one of those session musicians, right? You're called in by your boss to work on this album, and it's not working. and he's saying, actually, the demos are better than what we're doing right now. How would you feel about that? I get the movie's not about the E Street Band, but it just, this movie has no conflict in it whatsoever. Yes, there's conflict in the flashbacks with him and his abusive father, but in the modern day, like the movie is wrapped up by his manager going to the record label heads and saying, Bruce Springsteen wants to release this album as it is, as this collection of demos in a way. And the label's like, oh, really? And the manager's like, yeah. And they're like, okay. And then that's it. It's just resolved. You would think there would be a scene where someone would just go, yeah, no, we're not doing this. Like, we're going to make you release a different version of this. And I get that's not what happened, but it's like, if there's no compelling conflict and there's no story to really tell, then why tell the story? This feels like it would have been better as a documentary. And it sucks because I love the performances here. Jeremy Allen White is incredible as Bruce Springsteen. Like, genuinely, that voice is, he has the voice. I want to know how he did it, because in that first scene where he's singing Born to Run, that's Springsteen, man. Like, it sounds just like him. When he's just sitting in a room playing guitar, it sounds just like Bruce Springsteen. I don't know when we're gonna get to that place we really want to go. It's almost like the anti-Elvis movie, where the Baz Luhrmann, Austin Butler Elvis movie was so insane, so crazy and hectic, it covered so much ground in so little time and still felt meaningless. This is so hard set on one specific era and a very specific set of characters, and yet it accomplishes nothing in that time. There are large portions of this movie that's just Bruce Springsteen watching TV, and then he's like, oh, and then he starts writing lyrics down. I get that's how they did it in real life, I'm sure. I'm sure he was just watching TV and was like, oh, I'm going to write this song. It's not interesting. There were just so many points in this movie where I'm thinking, you're making a movie about the boss, one of the greatest songwriters of all time, and you're doing nothing with it. Now, look, this is just my opinion. I am one of the few people out there that thinks that Nebraska is actually one of his weaker albums. Atlantic City is amazing. However, I just find that album to be very tedious. But even then, I still think that it could have worked in this movie, where they very much just tell it like it happened, and they probably did. It seems like they tried to keep it as accurate as possible, but just nothing happened. It was just the most boring movie I've ever seen ever. It's just a total waste of these actors' performances. Everyone involved was just phenomenal. And I get why some people do like this movie. If you are a hardcore Springsteen fan, I think you can look past a lot of the negatives and just say, oh, it's cool we got to see them record Born in the USA. Or, oh, I like seeing that, they kind of let this scene play out because, this is how it happened in history. And I've always, it's the recognizable member berries kind of like taking advantage of what actually happened and what people like, as opposed to just telling a good story that's actually interesting. I don't know. I was let down by this. I wouldn't say I outright hated it, but it very much disappointed me. Springsteen deserved better. That's my honest to God take on this. The cinematography is very well done too. I mean, the technical stuff works. It just fails in the writing department for me. Like, there are just so many great character studies of musicians that are out there that have done this type of thing much better. How do you make a Springsteen movie boring? I really don't get it. With all that out of the way, I'm Cole McCormick. You're watching Firewood Media. A bit of a short video on this one. If you're curious on my thoughts on Gus Van Sant's Last Days, which is a movie that's kind of sort of about Kurt Cobain, I recommend you click one of these videos here, or maybe it's here. I don't remember where I put it. I will have a vlog about my New Zealand trip out sometime next week, and I'll have some other fun stuff out as well. My band is dropping an album on Tuesday, so I'll make sure to do a video talking all about that on here. Channel members, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Your names are listed right up here on screen. Thank you so much for making this channel what it is. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.